Welcome, Carol.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'm gonna mess your last name up.
It's Plum-Ucci.
Uchi. Okay, I was gonna say Uchi, so I was pretty close. Today we have
That's fine.
Carol Plum-Ucci with us, and I'm so excited to dive in and learn all about your books.
Great.
You're a young adult novelist. Do you write in any other genres or just YA?
Well, I was writing in YA, and this is my first release as a commercial novel in a commercial mainstream market. So I'm very excited about that. YA was fun. I'm kind of feeling like it might be losing its usefulness a little bit. There's just so many YA books out there now, and there's so many television stations, that are just all about kids. And it made me want to do. I'm still in the mindset that I pretty much was. I mean, these characters, the protagonist, he is an adult, but he's very young.
Okay.
And yeah, I just thought it would be better for everyone. People generally adults love to read in this mindset. It's like their age before there was the IRS and divorces and blended families and all these really serious problems. But it's also really suspenseful and it'll take you away from your own life and your own problems. So
Okay, so just so everyone's on the same page, make sure you tell us the title.
it is Insane Possibilities.
Insane possibilities. Okay, and
Mhm.
set who is our protagonist?
Our protagonist has the insane possibilities. Okay. He was on family vacation with his two younger sisters, and he falls 90 feet down a well. And he knows that he was pushed. And he knows the only people there were his little sisters. And so he starts to look at whether there's this phantom, a witch or something, who had to do with this well. And he's so convinced it would not be one of his sisters or somebody else that he couldn't see, that he starts to get snagged up in, could this be paranormal? And sure enough, the drawers in his room where he's confined to a striker bed, start to open and close, and there's nothing he can do about this. Anyway, I thought that was really creepy enough to write about. But his insane possibilities are, could this be one of my sisters, a dead witch, or this? There actually was a Anglican priest walking by who claims to have seen the whole thing. Now, could it be him? So, could it be he? Sorry. Anyway, so that's his insane possibilities.
Interesting. So what year is the book set in?
It's set in modern time and right this, whenever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing so he gets hurt in the well, but he gets rescued?
Yes, he gets rescued. Fortunately, he is from the beach and he had been a lifeguard and he knew how to dive and those things that could possibly save you in a situation like that. And he just got the split second thought, to curl up in a ball in case the water was only like 6 feet deep or something. It just gave him the best chance of living. And so he did break his neck, and he broke one of his legs, and he had his hip was dislocated. So those types of injuries, you can't just give someone a halo. Like people with broken necks, they'll walk around with a halo. But if you have to keep one of your legs straight or you can't use your legs, you have to go into one of these beds. And my girlfriend was in one. That's how I got this idea. And I walked in and I saw her, and she had to look at everything in the mirror, including the TV. And I didn't say to her what my writer's imagination was thinking, which was, what if there's a fire? Or, you know, what if somebody broke in here? I mean, just to be confined like that just seemed icky enough that it would make a good plot twist.
Yeah, definitely. It would make me go insane. I need my movement.
Right, right. He can't even do yoga.
And so how long is he confined? Like the rest of the book?
7 weeks it is, and the book really starts. I mean, there's a number of flashbacks throughout, but the book really starts. when he's got 7 weeks assigned and he's at the end of his 6th week. So he only has a week left, which could turn out to be 4 or 5 days. So he's very hopeful. At this point, he's almost healed. And so rather than being very reliant on this confined situation, he's almost healed and is really ready to get rid of it. So he's dealing with that too. But mostly what he wants to do is find out who pushed him and why. Why would somebody do that? You'd have to be a serial killer or something. That's what he's thinking at first. But it's kind of about our memories, and how they're not really good in stressful situations. And he may be convinced of what happened, but what he's convinced of is starting to look clearly impossible. So, what do you do in a situation like that? How good are we at telling ourselves, well, look, we really feel this thing is true, but it couldn't possibly be. So, we're going to ignore our feelings. I mean, how many of us can really do that?
Not many.
Mhm.
Yeah. I broke my hip one time and I could not figure out, it took me like a year to figure out how I broke it. Like going back over every memory. And like for 2 weeks, I was walking on this broken hip. Um,
Ouch.
and it was very painful, but I was like, I didn't do anything.
Right.
Nothing should be that wrong with me. It must just be a muscle pull or something. I kept going to
Mhm.
chiropractors and finally I went to the doctor and they're like, okay, you need surgery right now.
Oh,
But it
wow.
was like one of those things, like in my mind, like, and it took me a year to remember how that I had been carrying a heavy suitcase and like I was going down the stairs and I kind of slipped. So like I fell on my butt really hard. And that
Oh,
must have been, that's the only thing I can figure. But it seems like this, I mean, not obviously not to that extreme of falling down a well, but like I was so confused of how this could have happened that
yeah.
I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
But
And if you had had a special vested interest, like you wouldn't have wanted to say you did this at your parents' house because it would really upset your parents. But, you know, how much, how much are we able to see the truth when we really want it to be something else? I guess that's a big part of this.
interesting. And so
Mhm.
I mean, in the end, does he really find out what happens or do we
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
finds out this is really a classic whodunit with an element of the paranormal involved. I'm not saying that she did it or she didn't do it, but that's it. So you got to figure out who did it.
Okay. And this kind of book, I'm always impressed with mystery writers because it seems like it takes a lot of planning and
Uh-huh.
like leaving little clues, but also leaving the wrong clues so
Hmm.
people don't figure it out soon enough, but when they find out the answer they think back and then they put all the little clues together
Right.
so I mean, was it harder to write than other books that you've written?
I would say no. I'm a very intuitive writer. I'm almost using 90% intuition, with language and stuff like that. And with this one, this is the first one I think. Yeah, I'm trying to think back of my other ones where I knew how it ended.
Hmm.
Some of them I was up to chapter 10 and I didn't know if the missing person was dead or alive. I've done that twice. But in this case, I did know. And I just felt like I had to be a little bit careful. However, the good news for writers out there, if you get any writers who listen to you, is that you can go above and beyond. You can go around situations. You can wherever you go. Let me say it this way: wherever you go, you can pull the reader along with you. Generally, they're not going to object. I've often looked for it, but I've never had a reader say this is not plausible.
Hmm.
You know, because they just follow you. So it's not as hard as you think. As long as I'm having fun, they'll have fun. That's the way it's always worked.
I just feel like to write a mystery, I would have, and I always know where my books are going to end, but
Hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen in between. So because that's the fun of it for me. Like that's the creative part. So I'm always thinking, okay, what's the next plot point or what's the next situation or scenario or what's the next hurdle
Yeah. Hmm.
that they need to get around to get them to where they need to be in the end.
Right.
And so that's sort of, but so I don't do outlines or anything. But I feel like if I was going to write a mystery, I would have to do an outline to like put in all the little clues of giving people either mistaken clues or real clues to make
But
it
I know a lot of writers who write like that. I just can't. My characters never do what I'm telling them to, and they just want to do their own thing. And I feel like if I don't give them that leeway, then we're gonna have a real problem. They just won't do it.
right. Yeah,
you
no, my
know.
characters don't do what I want half
So,
the time either.
well,
So
when you're writing from your inner child, right? And you know how children respond when you tell them what they're going to do. I mean, sometimes they'll go do it, but a lot of times they'll make them want to do the opposite. So, yeah, I've had some big arguments with my inner child. And I've just learned it's better not to waste your that's why I don't outline. Um, but I can understand why people do. I almost wish I could. But
I started outlining after the fact now. Like after I write a chapter, I go back and put you an outline of what I wrote. So my editor appreciates that now.
oh, that's good. Yeah, you could hand in like a little chapter by chapter synopsis,
Yeah, like a cheat sheet
something.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah, because
And that way,
one thing we
yeah.
hate writing is our synopsis. Oh, I can't wait till AI can do that.
I bet it could. I'm sure it could now.
Well, you'd have to be able to feed it the whole novel, and
That's true.
you have to have the expensive pack, to be able to do that. I think we get like 10,000 words or something, but at any rate, I don't like to do that. I don't like to write about the author. Just give me the text that I can have fun with, and that's all.
Fun.
Mhm.
So where are you going from here? Are you working on a new novel?
I'm thinking about it. I have one that's finished in my mind, but it's different than anything I've ever written before. And so I'm not sure how that would go over. Is it worth it? Should I wait, until this one does a little more? So I have that. And then I have one that I really want to write. I only have 6 chapters in, but it's about the Great Flood. I know most people have, if they've fallen in love with ancient history, they fall in love with the Greeks and the Romans. So I fell in love with the Jews. And I love some of these Bible stories and will love to get people to love them as much as I do. So I have that one that I'm working on too. And it's kind of an eeny, meeny, miny, mo right now.
Interesting.
Hmm.
I'm captivated by that. So is it going to be a mystery too, or?
Probably. Well, the thing about writing Bible stories, you have to be really good at certain things because you're going to be bad at others. In Bible stories, most people know the answer. So if you're going to do it well, you have to construct away from those answers and into areas that are a little more pliable. Like everybody knows that when the Great Flood happens, it starts to rain and the boat actually floats. It doesn't sink. Back then everybody thought little boats floated and big things sunk. So that get to the bottom of that one. But I am kind of looking at his not Noah himself but his children. I always wondered, this is why I love these stories so much. It's not sometimes what they say but what they don't say. But I always wondered if his children didn't think he was out of his mind.
Well,
Dad's lost.
everybody did, right? Supposedly everybody thought he was out of his mind.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you had a farmer living a few doors down and he started designing a rocket ship because God told him, he says, that his family's got to escape. There's going to be a big fire that covers the whole world and his family's going to escape. You would try and have that guy padlocked, right? In a nut house.
Well, it depends on if you have a really stringent HOA or not.
Yeah. That's a good one. I got to throw that in there somewhere. But you can hear my enthusiasm. I would just love to do it. I just don't know how easy it would be. You know.
Yeah, and I have come across sometimes in reading other books that are based on biblical stories,
Uh-huh.
it can also be very contentious, or a lot of people can be opinionated about the way you interpret.
Oh,
So
listen, are you kidding me? If I wrote this story, I would get the crap beaten out of me. Um, by existing various, fundamental dimensions of the Protestant church. Yeah, I'm ready for it, and I just like I want to play around in there, and people never stop taking the Bible personally. It's just something that you got to deal with. But I don't think they love a lot of those stories, and I do love a lot of those stories. I think Noah and King David, they're like my favorites. So who knows? I'd like to dive in there.
that sounds very exciting.
Hmm.
Carol,
Yeah.
tell us where we can find you, where we can find your book, and I mean, how did you get started writing? I mean,
Oh, that's a good story.
I would love to hear that story.
I got started writing as a child. I was raised in a funeral home on a barrier island. Okay. So my daddy was a funeral director, and the funeral home was directly underneath us. And it was a windier place than Chicago. There's only one place windier in the United States than Chicago, and it is Brigantine, the island I was raised on. So I always tell people I learned to be a writer in the middle of nights. I have ADHD as well, so I don't sleep much. And I was always awake in the middle of the night and trying to ascertain whether we had a quote unquote guest downstairs. And if I were smelling the flowers or could remember, whether daddy had a viewing the night before, I would know. And I would just watch my door frame for a couple hours at a time. And I don't know what I thought was going to happen. It never got to the point where I was thinking something was going to eat me or something. I suppose just, carry you off to one of those places under the bed, where under the bed is the portal or something like that. So, yeah, that went on like fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And it was at the same time that I really started to like to read mysteries. Um, with my mom. My mom loved mysteries. And, when daddy was working a funeral, she would let me get in her bed if I had a book to read while she was reading. So that was really special. And she would look over the weekly reader, the scholastic reader thing with all the books in it. And we would pick out the mysteries and I'd get the ones for next time. And yeah, so I've been doing that since I was a kid. And then when I was an adult, I was a journalist. And I'm so glad I came up through the school of journalism because you learn to do things very quickly and repetitively. You learn to write 10 pages a day. I learned that yeah, I was a feature writer. I learned that if you don't capture the reader's attention in the first two lines and keep it, you're going to get fired. So the reader has always been right there for me. And I think that's what has really helped me more than anything, thinking about the reader.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because you're like, well, I always try to picture like, what does the reader want to hear next, or what do they want
That's
to
it.
know
That's
next?
it.
Or
Do
what's
you
going
want
to
them?
surprise them? What's going to keep them reading to the next line? Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, turning the page. Um, I used to give myself this little test, which is, when I had written a passage and I would picture, somebody um, sitting in their house and somebody comes outside and beeps the horn, like it's time to go, or, text you, it's time to go, get up, come on, what are you doing? And would the reader feel, darn, could you just shut up for 15 more minutes while I finish this? And that was the type of bar I used to try and chin myself to. So I think it works. Yeah.
I definitely say that would be a good skill to have.
Yeah. Well, I am Carol Plum-Ucci. If people want to find my website, Carol Plum-Ucci. And I'm with Co-Pilot Publishers in Alabama. This is the first book I have sold outside of New York. So that's new and pretty fun. And Co-Pilot, there's a link from my website. They should use that because there's another Co-Pilot out there. There's copilot.com and this is .org. And
Okay.
yeah, and there's a new podcast of me on YouTube. You just have to type in my name and it'll come up. And it's, you know, another hour, hour and a half of the stuff, you know, and I think it would be especially interesting to writers because
Okay,
we were talking about the process on there too.
right.
Mhm.
Insane possibilities. I'm gonna click. That's yeah, I will, definitely. Well,
uh,
thank you
you
so
know where to find me. You can tell me what you think.
Yes, I will, definitely. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank
I'm
you, Tina.
super excited to dive into your book, and when you write another one, I'll have you back.
Okay, awesome. You take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.